Okay, second go around on quadratic equations. You have graphs. They're parabolas because you got second powers. Also, you got equations to solve. You got two answers to each one. And a couple of story problems, which we will be figuring out. Alright, so let's do it to it. Alright, graphing. Remember, the parabolas can take place in three different forms. If x squared is your highest power, it is indeed going to be a parabola. Okay, so x squared, we got parabola. Now you got to know the form that it takes place in. If there are no parentheses, standard form. If there's one parentheses with the second outside, that's vertex form. And if you have two parentheses but each contain the x variable, that's a parabola, but it's in factored form. Okay. And each one involves a table. So there's no parentheses here, so I think we're going with standard form. So I make my table. Remember, A, B, and C are just values, so -3 and 9. Okay, you don't. Middle vertex is found with the opposite of B divided by 2A. So opposite of B divided by 2 times A. So the opposite of B would be -9, and then I need to find the product of 2 and the A coefficient, -3. Okay, so that's -6, and that equals 1.5. So 1.5 is your middle. +1, -1 to find the outer x, so 2.5, 0.5. Then you substitute on your calculator to find y. Okay, so we will be first plugging in 2.5. So I have -3, parentheses 2.5 to the second power, plus 9, parentheses 2.5, minus 4. Okay, -0.25. So that means you'll just stay between 0 and 1. 1.5, so -3, and then 1.5 to the second, plus 9, 1.5, and then minus 4, 2.75. 0.5, so -3, and then 0.5 to the second, plus 9, and then 0.5 minus 4, back to Nate, so I know I have this exactly right. Okay, so 2.5, so 1, 2, and then -0.25 means you go between 0 and 1, so right here. Okay, 1.5, 2.75, so I go 1 halfway, then 2.75 is 1, 2, and then part way. Okay, 0.5, -0.25, so there and then down. And we have our parabola. Okay, next one, second power's there, so it is a parabola. But it's not in standard form. There's one parentheses with the second power, making it in vertex form. Okay, middle vertex, again, with parabolas, you're always using tables. Set the inside of the parentheses equal to 0 and solve. So x minus 5 is the expression inside. And then plus 5, I get 5. So that's your middle x vertex. And then up 1, down 1. Okay, substitute on the calculator to find y. So I got 4. And then we're going to go 6 minus 5. Second. And minus 7 gives me -3. Okay, let's go 5. So I've got 4. 5 minus 5 to the second, minus 7 gives you -7. Hopefully this takes me back to -3. So I've got 4. 4 minus 5 to the second, minus 7, got -3. Good. Okay, so 6, negative 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 5, negative 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, negative 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Again, the reason why this one's upside down is because you have a negative in the front. This is right side up because you got a positive in the front. Okay, and then this one here, this must be the factored form. I have two factors of parentheses, each containing the x, so it's in factored form. So you find the outer x values first by setting the inside equal to 0 and solving. So x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Subtract 1, I get negative 1. These are your outer x's, remember. On factored form, you find the outer ones first. Those are your x-intercepts, because the y's are going to be 0. Okay, then we need to find the average of these two. Find y's, okay, middle vertex, add the outer values together, divide the sum by 2. So negative 1 plus 3 is 2. Divide that by 2, it's 1. Okay. All right, let's be plugging those in. I think these should be 0 on these. Okay, so 2 and then negative 1 plus 1, because I know that that's 0 right there. So negative 1 minus 3 is 0. Okay, 2, and then 1 plus 1, 1 minus 3, negative 8. And then 3. 2, 3 plus 1, and 3 minus 3, 0. Good, good. So negative 1, 0, that's an x-intercept. 1, negative 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 3, 0. Okay, and that's the graphing. Hopefully, we're confident enough with that. Okay, now the equation solving. There are 3 ways we go about solving quadratic equations. Okay, if you have x squared only, that's the only kind of x you have, you isolate the x squared, undo the second power of the square root. But when you square root and it's not on that list, okay, which I'm going to get right here. So that's why you see a blank spot on your camera. If it ain't on that list, you need to do what's going on here. If you have x in the parentheses as second, you want to use the q, replace the parentheses with q, and then the chart. And then if you got x squared and add another x in here, you're going to have to make sure you have the equals 0 and then factor. But there's only 2 terms or 3 terms. And you will not, now there were problems, I'll just go start working. Okay, 2 answers. And what do we have for x's? I have x to the second, and I've got regular x. Okay. So that means we are going to have to go to the factoring procedure, this bottom part right here. So the 0's here. Now count the terms. There's 2 of them. So GCF and DOPS. Now there were some problems we did where we would make another DOPS box, but I don't have to on these because the highest power is a 2. You have to make another DOPS box. You'll want to if it's higher than a 2, but on this assessment they're all second powers. So GCF, got a negative in front. Nope, you got X on both. And 6 and 12, the GCF 6. Get that GCF calculator handy. 6X is pulled out. Okay, so it's going to be 1 with x minus 2. Okay, you have a minus, so it's at least a difference, but those are not perfect squares. 2's not, so cross it out. All right, then you parenthesize this guy, and that's F1, and that's F2. Okay, so 6x equals 0, or 1x minus 2 equals 0. So divide by 6, and I get 0. Add 2 to both sides, and we get 2. Bingo. Okay, next problem. 2 answers. X squared's there, but there is no x, so x squared only. So we want to isolate the x squareds. I'm going to put a 1 in front and circle the term. Okay, we need to undo the minus 3 by adding 3. 1x squared equals 50. We don't need to divide by 1. And now we undo the second power with its inverse, which is square root. So these two undo each other, leaving us with x. Remember, square root could be the positive or the negative. These are always opposite one another. Now, do you see 50 on the list of perfect square? No. So, you need to do this, okay? Not with 20, though, obviously. I want you to find something on here 50 is divisible by. It's between these two. 49, nope. 36, nope. 25, yep. So 25 and 2. Replace the first square root with its equal of 5. And we have 5 square root 2. And another thing I'm going to ask, was that 50 negative? Would I have the square root? No, it's not, so I don't need I. So I have 5 square root of 2, and then just put the same thing, negative in front. Next up, 2 answers. We have x to the second, and we also have x to the first, so now we have to go and do our factoring procedure. Is 0 there? Yep. Count the terms. There's 3 terms. That'd be GCF-T. Remember, if the T doesn't work, we have our quadratic formula. You should not just go to the quadratic formula. You got to do your t-test. So, GCF, negative, nope. X on everything, nope. 1, 7, and 44 is 1, so we can eliminate that. Okay, so A times C, ABC. Okay, so it's going to be 1 times negative 44, and that gives me a negative product of 44. So if I got a negative product, the two factors have to make a difference to the B, which is 7. 1 and 44, not even close. 44 divided by 2 is 22. 3 is a decimal. 44 divided by 4 is 11. Got it. Okay, so the 7 I'm trying to come to is minus, so we need our larger to be minus, and difference means they'll be opposite. And A is 1, so I just need 2 parentheses, and it's x to the second, so I can just put x and x, and then plus 4 minus 11. No GCF to worry about, so I have my F1 and my F2 figured out. So x plus 4 equals 0, x minus 11 equals 0. So minus 4, I get negative 4. Plus 11, I get 11. So negative 4 and 11 are the 2 answers. Okay, next up, 2 answers. We have x squared and we have x. So again, that's a factoring procedure. Do we have equals 0? You bet. How many terms we got? 3. So GCF, you got a negative in front? Nope. You got x on everything? Nope. 1, 6, and 4 will give you a 1. So we get it. Okay, so A times C, the product of the A and C coefficients are 1 times 4, and that's 4 positive. So now I'd look for a sum that would come to the B of 6. Right away, 4 divided by 1 is 4, and that's already under a sum of 6. So that is a fail. You should know right away if it's too low, fail. Because you go from high to low when you're coming out to your sums or differences. So, a little quadratic formula time. X equals plus minus opposite of BE, opposite of BE, plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac, so 4, and then b, which is negative 6, a, which is 1, c, which is 4. Then I have 2, and I have 1. Okay, so plus minus, we have our 6 in front. 2 times 1 in the bottom's 2. And remember, you have 2 options here. You can punch it in on your calculator, or you can go this route. I'll go this route, okay? You can punch it in your calculator. Make sure to hit the double parentheses. Make sure you have 2 parentheses at the beginning of the square root. Okay, and it's minus because minus is here, so therefore it goes here. Okay, negative 6 times negative 6, 36. And then 4 times 1 times 4 is 16, and that's 20. Now, on the quadratic formula, you can square root here, even if it's not on that square root list. Okay, 4.47. Let's see if I would have got the same thing. Second square root, remember 2 parentheses at the beginning, negative 6, second, minus 4, 1, and 4. Yep, got the same thing. So 6 plus 4.47 equals, divided by 2 is 5.24. Six minus 4.47, enter, divided by 2 is 0.77. All right, next one. Well, here's our x, but oh, that's in a parentheses. So I have x in parentheses with a plus or minus to the second power. Means we're going with q. Okay. Q. And then a table right away. Q table. Q is going to have a coefficient of 3. It's going to be to the second power. It's going to equal 48. So now we isolate q to the second. Okay, you don't really have to add or subtract. You need to divide the 3 out. Now, q to the second, 16, and then you square root. These undo each other. A square root can be positive or negative, and square root of 16 is 4. With these q problems, I always give you a number from the list, so you don't have to do that. With the isolate x squared problems, you're going to have to do the square root the hard way. Okay, so I think we have a 4 and a negative 4. Don't put those as the answers because we need to bring in x minus 4. So add 4 to both sides and I get 8. Add 4 to both sides and I get 0. 8, 0. Okay, next problem. We have x to the second, not in parentheses, but then there's an x. Okay, so that's factoring. So 0 there, yep. How many terms did we factor in? A binomial or a trinomial? Well, there's 3 terms, so it's a trinomial. Okay, so GCF and T. Okay, GCF, negative in front, nope. X on everything, nope. 5, 6, and 8, the GCF's 1. So A, B, C, so I'm going to be taking A times C, 5 times negative 8. That's negative 40, difference of 6. 1 and 40, nope. 2 and 20, nope. 3 is a decimal, 4 and 10, 10, yep. Okay, these have to come to 10, negative 6, so 10 would have to be negative, and it's a difference, so the opposite. Okay, A is 5, so that tells me I need to make 4 parentheses, and it's 5x squared, so it's x and x, so I go 5, x plus 4 minus 10. Okay, 5 and 4 GCF's 1, so that'll stay, because dividing by 1 would just be silly. 5 and 10 have a GCF of 5. That's 1x minus 2. Okay, so that's my factor 1, that's my factor 2, and that's why that's called factoring. There's no GCF. So 5x plus 4 equals 0, or 1x minus 2 equals 0. So I subtract 4, I get negative 4. You can put negative 4/5 or negative 0.8, whichever you prefer. And then plus 2, and I get 2. All right. Now, I'm going to come back to this juggler problem. I want to do this problem first, okay? And here's what it says. An internet service sells high-speed internet service for $30 to 1,500 customers. For each $1 increase in price, the number of customers decreases by 25. What's the maximum revenue the company can make following this technique? Maximum, that's the answer. So big center parabola. I know exactly what I'm finding. I don't need to do a lot of analyzing here, at least to start with. And then the y is found by replacing x on calculator. Okay, this is revenue, so the revenue equals the money we charge multiplied by the number of items that we sell. Revenue should be our y variable. And then both these get parentheses, and then look for money amounts first, because those would be the like terms, 30 and $1. So 30 is your starting point. $1 increase, so plus 1. Now, you got to understand, that's not going up by 1 just one time. It's going up by 1 repeatedly. So it goes from 30 to 31 to 32. It stops somewhere. I don't know where. I'll be figuring that out. But so because we don't know where that starts, we need to be putting X on that. It's 1 increase, so that's why we have plus. Okay. Items, well, those are the customers, okay? So I have 1,500 customers. And it says 25, but not plus 25. It decreases by 25, because if you up the price, less people buy. It's more expensive. Now, that's good, but it's in factored form. I need to get this so it's in standard form with the ax squared, the bx, and the c. Now, if I want on a test, I don't want you to FOIL that out, because it's going to lead to ridiculous answers for people making dumb little mistakes. Okay, and some are like, "Well, that ain't a big deal." Yeah, it is. I hate looking at illogical answers on story problems. So you're going to go to your Math Papa algebra calculator. Okay, remember Math Papa algebra calculator. Just Google it, and you're going to enter 30 plus 1x. Okay, if I can get to it. 30. Again, I'm using my iPad. Where's a plus? Plus. Back here. 1x. Okay, then another parentheses. You don't even need to put times. Okay, I would suggest you don't, because you don't put x. Okay. Just don't put anything. It'll work. If you don't put anything between the parentheses, it'll know it's times automatically. Okay. Minus 25x. If I let you use this, you'll be able to concentrate on what you're doing a lot more instead of all the tedious work. Okay, so I came up with negative 25x squared. 750x, and 45,000. Okay, mission accomplished. Now I just got to figure these out. Opposite of B, negative 750. 2, the product of 2 and A, 2 and negative 25 is negative 50. And then divide that. Okay, I believe it's 15, but I'm not sure. Yep. Okay, remember 15 is not the maximum revenue. That's the number of price changes that took place. That's why you have to find both these to know your full answer. So you replace X on the calculator with 15, because Y equals this. And that will be our Y. And remember, Y is what we have as our revenue variable. So works out pretty good. 50,625. Okay, so if they have 15 price changes, they're going to make $50,625. Okay, now ABC, please get that scratch paper. Juggler tosses the ball into the air. The ball leaves his hand 4 feet above the ground. Has an initial velocity of 40 feet per second. The juggler catches the ball when it falls back to a height of 3 feet. Find the ball's maximum height. Okay, maximum. This is part A. You already know that's just like we did on the last problem. This is even easier because you don't have parentheses on gravity. The gravity equation doesn't contain parentheses. Okay, gravity, can we give me a negative 16x squared plus the velocity 40 feet per second, so 40x. Starting height was 4, it was not 3, it left his hand at 4, and then equals y. That 3 has nothing to do with this, okay? And we have our A and we have our B. There are no parentheses, so I know right away. So the opposite of B is negative 40, and then 2 times negative 16. That's going to be negative 32. Okay, so I find that quotient, and that is going to be 1.25. That's not, again, you need both these, though. 1.25 is how many seconds it took to get to the max height, but it's not the actual maximum height. Negative 16, parentheses 1.25 to the second, plus 40, parentheses 1.25, plus 4, 29. So you can just put 29 feet. Okay, part B. Find the ball's height after 1 second. Okay, now you're not finding the maximum, so you need to conduct the analysis with the units, the path, and the equation. Feet and seconds. X is seconds, Y is feet, so per feet per second. Feet per second is 40. Okay, it is a parabola, indeed. So with parabolas, I just write the equation, gravity and it started from 4, that was your initial height, then equals y. Okay, the replacement value is 1 second. That goes in for, oh, seconds is x, nice, so I can get both these x's out. Negative 16 times 1 to the second plus 40, parentheses 1 plus 4 equals y. Plug it in on the calculator. Whenever you're solving for y, the y is by itself, making it very easy to find the answer. 28. That's just right below the maximum height. Okay, and then part C is a little bit more work. How many seconds does a ball land at a height of 3 feet? Okay, so okay, the units are feet and seconds, and x's are seconds, y's are feet, so per feet per second. Same thing, it's going to be 40. Parabola. And negative 16x squared plus the velocity 40x plus our starting height of 4 equals y. Now 3 feet this time is the input value. But feet's y, unfortunately, so we got to get rid of the y. It's a lot better when we can replace x. But, so 3. Okay, now you got to find your two answers for x. You got to use your factoring process. You need to get 0. You need to clear that 3 out. You cannot set up those boxes till the equation is equal to 0. Okay, 3 terms. GCF, you got a negative in front, you bet. Do you have x on everything? No. 16, 40, and 1 have a GCF of 1, but it's negative 1. We've already decided it was going to be negative, so we need to factor out negative 1. So it's going to be 16 with x squared. Negative 40x, please put minus 40x. And then negative 1, please put minus 1. Okay, T, A, B, C. A lot of you already know this isn't going to work, okay? Product of 16 and negative 1 is negative 16. Difference of 40. Right away, I'm too small. I'm at 15. Fail. Okay? So, opposite of B, opposite of B. Plus or minus the square root. B squared minus 4AC. Alright, so B, what do we have? Negative 40. For A, we have 16, and C, we have negative 1. Okay. Then on the bottom, we have 2 and 16. Okay, so I've got 40. And I plug that into my calculator on the square root, or you can do the order of operations. If you think that's a better way to go, do it. Okay, so I have negative 40 second power minus a 4, a 16, and a negative 1. Okay, I got 40.79. And 2 times 16 is 32. Okay, so 40 plus 40.79, divide that by 32, I got 2.52. That's good. Good looking answer. 40 minus 40.79, divide by 32, negative 0.02, that don't look so good. So we just have one answer, 2.52 seconds. Okay.